You know, I'm not a jealous guy. I'm not. But I'm also not an idiot. For 8 years of marriage, I'd listened to my wife, Sarah, talk about her 4 college friends. They were a package deal, a tight-knit sorority of secrets and inside jokes that I was never fully allowed into. There was Becca, the loudmouthed ringleader, Laura, the follower who echoed everything Becca said, Emily, the quiet, anxious one, and Karen, the one who always seemed a little too normal for the group. I tolerated them. I hosted them for dinners, smiled through their cackling brunches, and endured the passive-aggressive comments Becca would make about my job or my taste in movies. So, when Sarah announced 2 months ago that the 5 of them were planning their annual Ultimate Girls trip, this time to Miami, I already had a knot in my stomach. It wasn't about the trip itself. It was about her behavior leading up to it. She was jumpy and secretive with her phone, angling the screen away from me whenever a text came in. She started talking about a new expensive gym she joined across town, insisting she needed a different vibe for her workouts. The spending on our joint credit cards ticked up. New clothes, new shoes, a new set of luggage. When I questioned it, I was met with a wall of indignation. God, Jason, can I have anything for myself? It's for my trip with my friends. Are you saying you don't trust me? It was a classic manipulation tactic, and I saw it for what it was. It wasn't about trust. It was about deflecting from a legitimate question. I didn't push it, but I didn't forget it either. I'm not the kind of man who ignores red flags just to keep the peace. I observe, I file it away, and I wait. The Thursday she was supposed to leave, the atmosphere in our condo was tense. I helped her with her bags, a row of shiny new suitcases I'd paid for. She gave me a quick, almost formal hug and a peck on the cheek. "I'll miss you," she said, but her eyes were already somewhere else looking past me toward the door. "Have fun," I said, my voice neutral. "Be safe." The moment the door clicked shut, a strange sense of quiet descended. It wasn't peace, it was the eerie calm before a storm. I had a feeling, a deep gut-level certainty that this trip was a turning point. I just didn't know how right I was. That afternoon, the proof arrived. It came in the form of a direct message on Instagram from an account I didn't recognize. The profile picture was blank. The message contained a screenshot of a group chat. The chat's name was Miami Mayhem, and the members were Sarah, Becca, Laura, and Emily. Karen was conspicuously absent. I read the messages, my blood turning to ice. "Becca, is the dude finally gone? You free, Sarah?" "He's gone. Finally. He was being so clingy and suspicious this morning. I swear he's like a warden. Forget him. Alex is going to make you forget his name in about 5 minutes. LOL. That's the plan. He's already checked into the hotel. This weekend is going to be legendary." Below the screenshot, another message from the anonymous account appeared. "This is Karen. Just so you know, the rest of us are in Vegas." This was all a lie she cooked up with Becca and Laura. Emily and I had no idea until this morning. I can't be a part of this. I'm sorry, Jason. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, connecting the dots, the new gym, the secretive texts, the lies. It was all a carefully constructed theater, and I was the unsuspecting audience of one. Or so they thought. I wasn't hurt. The time for hurt was long past. My suspicions had already built a callus over that part of my heart. This was something else. This was a declaration of war. I typed a single reply to Karen. "Appreciate it. Say nothing. Enjoy Vegas." Then I opened a new folder on my desktop and saved the screenshot. I renamed the folder project Severance. The plan began to form, not out of rage but out of a cold, clear necessity. She hadn't just cheated. She had conspired with her friends to humiliate me. She had used my money to fund her betrayal. She saw me as an obstacle, a dud to be managed and deceived. She was about to find out how this particular dud managed a crisis. The trip was scheduled to last 3 days. It was all the time I needed. Update 1. The first phase of Project Severance was information and containment. I spent the rest of Thursday evening in a state of hyper-focused activity. My first call was not to a lawyer, but to a private investigator, a guy named Rick, whom my firm used for discreet background checks. I gave him the name, Alex, the name of Sarah's gym, and the location, Miami. I told him I needed photos, hotel records, and a full profile. I told him money was no object. My second call was to my sister Jessica. She's a corporate lawyer, sharp as a tack and completely unsentimental. I sent her the screenshot and gave her the rundown. Her reaction was immediate and practical. Lock down your finances now before she can drain them. So I did. Our main asset was the condo we lived in, which we owned jointly. That would be a fight for later, but our liquid assets were vulnerable. We had a joint checking account, a joint savings account, and a home equity line of credit I'd set up for renovations, which she had full access to. At 9 a.m. on Friday morning, I was at the bank. I opened a new set of accounts under my name only. I calculated our total shared liquid assets and transferred exactly half down to the cent into my new accounts. Then I put a freeze on the home equity line. I didn't take her money. I secured mine. Next, I called the credit card companies. We had 2 joint cards, both of which I was the primary account holder on. I explained that my wallet had been stolen and that my cards, as well as my wife's authorized user cards, needed to be canceled immediately and reissued to my business address. It was a clean, simple lie that would prevent her from being able to use them for the rest of her trip. The consequences of that would be her problem to solve. While I was handling the financials, Rick, the PI, called back. He was good. He was fast. He had a full name, Alex Thorne, a personal trainer with a history of dating wealthy married women. He had photos of Sarah and Alex checking into a luxury hotel on South Beach. He even had a copy of their reservation, which showed they had booked a 3-night stay in the honeymoon suite. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. That afternoon I took another step. My sister had warned me that Sarah's inevitable defense would be to paint me as abusive or controlling. She'll say she was driven to it. Jessica had advised, "You need to protect the narrative." So I ordered 2 small high-definition security cameras. They were discreet, motion-activated, and completely legal to have in my own home. I installed one overlooking the main living area and another pointed at the front door. By Friday evening, the foundations of my strategy were in place. I had evidence. I had secured my finances and I had protected my home. Now it was time to go on the offensive. I thought about Karen, the friend who had warned me. Then I thought about Emily, the quiet one. I looked back at the screenshot. She hadn't participated in the mocking, but she hadn't defended me either. She was a weak link. I found Emily's number and sent her a text. "Emily, it's Jason. I know what's going on. We need to talk." Her reply came almost instantly. "Please don't be mad. I didn't know what to do." I called her. She sounded terrified. I kept my voice calm and even. I told her I wasn't mad at her, but that I needed to know everything. For the next hour, she spilled it all. This wasn't a one-time thing with Alex. It had been going on for months. Becca had introduced them. The girls' trip was a deliberate, calculated plan to spend a weekend with him, funded by my money. She told me Sarah and Becca were constantly mocking me behind my back. Calling me old-fashioned and boring, she said Sarah had been talking about leaving me, but that she wanted to wait until the market was better to sell the condo, and that she had been talking to a lawyer about how to get the maximum amount of alimony. But then Emily dropped a bombshell that changed everything. She told me Sarah had been complaining about her father's failing business for months, and that about 3 months ago she had mentioned co-signing a loan for him. A big one. She had used the condo as collateral. A cold dread washed over me. I had no knowledge of this loan. I had never signed anything. I ended the call with Emily, promising to keep her out of it as much as possible, and immediately started digging through the files in our home office. It took me an hour, but I found it tucked away in a folder of old tax documents. It was a business loan agreement for $200,000 co-signed by my wife and her father, and she had without a doubt forged my signature on the document. The betrayal was deeper and darker than I could have ever imagined. This wasn't just cheating. This was criminal fraud. I now had the weapon I needed to not just end the marriage, but to obliterate her entire false reality. The final pieces of the plan clicked into place. I spent all day Saturday with my lawyer, Marcus Thorne, a man who looked more like a bulldog than an attorney. When I showed him the forged loan document, a slow, predatory smile spread across his face. "Well now," he said, "this changes things. This changes everything. Update 2. The trap was set for Sunday evening. Sarah's flight was scheduled to land at 7:00 p.m. At 5 p.m., I had a process server arrive at the condo. He was a big, imposing man who looked like he moonlighted as a bouncer. I gave him a thick envelope containing 2 sets of documents. The first was the petition for divorce. The second was a formal eviction notice giving her 30 days to vacate the property. Taped to the front door, I placed a separate, smaller envelope. Then I went to my sister's house to wait. I was not going to be there for the initial confrontation. The cameras would capture everything I needed. At 7:23 p.m., the first alert came from my security app. A motion notification at the front door. I opened the live feed on my phone. There she was, tanned from the Miami sun, looking relaxed and happy. She reached for her keycard to the main building entrance, swiped it, and was denied. The look of annoyance that crossed her face was deeply satisfying. She tried again, denied. She buzzed the concierge, her voice sharp and entitled. I could hear the tiny audio through my phone speaker. "This is Sarah Miller from Unit 121. My key isn't working." The concierge's voice was professionally bland. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Your access has been deactivated at the request of the primary resident." Her confusion quickly morphed into outrage. "That's ridiculous. Let me in immediately." "I'm afraid I can't do that, ma'am," the concierge replied. "However, there is a gentleman here to see you." The process server stepped into the frame. "Sarah Miller," he asked, holding out the large envelope. The scene played out exactly as I had imagined. She refused to take the papers, so he dropped them at her feet. "You've been legally served," he said, and walked away. The camera in my living room captured her storming into the condo after the concierge finally let her into the building, her face a mask of thunderous rage. She tore open the envelope, her eyes scanning the documents. The sound she made, a half scream, half sob, was the sound of a cornered animal realizing the trap had sprung. That's when she saw the smaller envelope taped to the inside of the door. Her name was on it. She ripped it open. Inside was not a letter from me. It was a copy of the $200,000 loan agreement with the forged signature circled in red marker. On the top, I had written a single sentence. "I know everything. Your move." The phone calls started moments later. I let the first one go to voicemail. It was a rambling, hysterical message filled with threats and accusations. I saved the recording. I answered the second call and put it on speaker with my sister listening as a witness. "What is this, Jason?" "What have you done?" she shrieked. "I've simply responded to your actions, Sarah," I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. "You can't just kick me out. This is my home. You're insane. Is it your home, Sarah? Or is it collateral for your father's failing business? A business you used our shared asset to secure without my knowledge or consent by forging my signature on a legal document." The line went dead silent. The rage evaporated, replaced by the cold, stark terror of being caught. "How? How did you find out about that?" She stammered. "It doesn't matter how I found out," I said. "It only matters that I did. The divorce papers are real. The eviction notice is real. And the criminal complaint for bank fraud that I will be filing on Monday morning is also very real. Unless, of course, you and your father decide to be extremely cooperative." I could hear her panicked breathing. "What do you want?" She whispered. "I want you to sign an uncontested divorce agreement. You will walk away with nothing but your personal belongings. You will make no claim on this condo, our savings, or any of my future earnings. You will waive your right to alimony in exchange for your signature on that agreement. I will consider not pressing criminal charges for the fraud. You have 24 hours to decide. I suggest you talk to your father." I hung up the phone. Phase 2 was complete. The leverage was absolute. The next 24 hours were a flurry of panicked calls between Sarah, her parents, and their lawyer. My own lawyer, Marcus, handled all communication. Their initial response was bluster and threats. Their lawyer tried to argue that the forged signature would be hard to prove. Marcus calmly informed him that we had already retained a forensic handwriting expert. Their lawyer tried to argue for a more equitable settlement. Marcus replied that any settlement other than the one on the table would result in a criminal investigation that would not only land Sarah in serious legal trouble, but would also likely bankrupt her father and destroy his reputation. By Monday afternoon, they had folded. Sarah signed the agreement, her hand shaking so badly she could barely hold the pen. She agreed to everything. She walked away with nothing but the contents of the boxes I had packed for her. The fallout with her friends was just as swift. Karen and Emily, the two who had shown a conscience, cut ties with Sarah, Becca, and Laura completely. The story of the betrayal, the fake trip, and the bank fraud spread through their social circle, and Sarah became a pariah. Becca and Laura, the loyal co-conspirators, found themselves ostracized as well. No one wanted to be associated with that level of toxicity. Final update, it's been a year now. The divorce was finalized in record time. As per our agreement, Sarah's name was removed from the deed of the condo, and I bought out her half of the equity. The amount she received was immediately swallowed up by the debts her father had incurred. His business eventually went under, a casualty of the scandal and his own financial mismanagement. The relationship between Sarah and her parents is, from what I've heard, incredibly strained. They blame her for the public humiliation and the financial ruin. The last I heard, Sarah is living in a small apartment rented by her parents. She had to get a full-time office job, a far cry from the life of leisure she had planned for herself. Alex, the gym trainer, disappeared the moment the scandal broke. He wanted a wealthy mistress, not a broke and disgraced divorce. A few months ago, I was at a charity gala and my company sponsors. I was talking to a group of colleagues when I saw her across the room. She was there with her mother, who was clearly trying to network her way back into social relevance. Sarah looked tired and bitter. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw a flicker of the old hatred. But there was something else there, too. Defeat. She looked away first. My revenge was not a single explosive act. It was a quiet, methodical dismantling of a life built on lies. I used her own deception, her own greed as the tools of her undoing. She thought she was playing a game, but she was playing it against an opponent who had already read the rulebook and seen all the hidden moves. She didn't just lose a marriage. She lost her home, her friends, her financial security, and the future she thought she was entitled to. And she has no one to blame but herself. The quiet in my condo is no longer eerie. It's peaceful, and it's mine. Oh, if you made it this far, that means the story spoke to you. Please consider subscribing, leaving a like, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. It really means a lot to me more than you know. These stories take time to write, and your support helps me keep going. Thank you for listening all the way through. Until next time.